The garage light was on. I never leave it on. My keys slipped from my hand when I saw her car already parked, an hour earlier than usual. The engine was still ticking as it cooled, like it had been driven fast. Aggressively, I stood there in the half-dark, listening to the metal pop and crack like it was trying to speak for her. No music playing inside. No sound at all. Just a faint smell of vanilla candles and something else. Something I couldn't place. Something that didn't belong to this house. I walked down the hallway and saw her, standing in the dining room like she'd been summoned there. No wine glass. No phone. Just standing. Perfect posture. Hands clasped behind her back like a soldier awaiting orders. She didn't look at me. Not at first. I said her name, once. Then again, a little softer. That's when she turned, slowly, as if I'd interrupted her during a secret ritual. I wish I could say I braced myself, that some part of me knew. But all I had in that moment was confusion and a creeping sense of awe. Like when you walk into a room and forget why you're there. She stared at me like I was an antique she hadn't seen in a while. Then, with a voice so calm it made my blood go cold, she said, "There's something you need to hear." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. I didn't move. Didn't blink. She tapped the screen twice. The first sound was wind. Then footsteps. Then her voice, quieter than I'd ever heard it before, murmuring, "This feels wrong. He's home waiting." And then a man. His voice, deep, playful, whispering, "He's always waiting. That's the problem." The recording cut off. She didn't cry. She didn't explain. She didn't apologize. She just stared at me like it was my turn to speak. Like it was my problem now. But I couldn't speak. Because something about her silence said this wasn't the worst of it. Not even close. I wanted to say something. Anything. But my mouth felt like it had been wired shut by the weight of what I'd just heard. That recording. His voice. Her calm. The casual way she stood there. As if she had just handed me my mail. Not detonated a live grenade in my chest. I walked past her. Not to storm off. Not to make a statement. I just needed to sit down before my legs gave out. I sank into the nearest chair at the table where we used to eat every Friday night, like clockwork, with that stupid candle she always lit and the playlist we made back when we still pretended to like each other. Now that same table felt like a witness to something I was never supposed to hear. She followed me in slowly, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I could hear her bare feet brushing against the tile, her breath shallow but steady. She didn't sit. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me like I was a project she didn't quite finish. "I didn't play the whole thing," she said finally, her voice low, emotionless. "You don't want to hear the rest. You think that's up to you?" I choked out. She didn't flinch. "It won't change anything." I stared at her. I couldn't even picture her the same anymore. It's like someone had put her skin over a stranger. Everything familiar about her suddenly felt like a costume. Her favorite sweater, the way she twirled her ring when she was nervous, even the faint scar above her eyebrow I used to trace with my thumb when we lay in bed. All of it fake. "Who is he?" I asked. Not because I didn't already have an idea, but because I needed to hear her say it. She looked at the wall behind me. Not at me. "You don't know him. Try me." She hesitated. That pause told me everything. "Is he married?" I asked, my voice sharper now. "Is that why you're being careful?" She finally met my eyes. "He's not married. He's just someone who listens." That hit harder than if she'd said it was physical. Someone who listens. She might as well have stabbed me through the ribs with those 3 words. "You mean someone who listens better than your husband?" I replied bitterly. "Got it. You stopped seeing me a long time ago, Dean." And just like that, I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the cause. The neglected plant. The inattentive husband who, in her mind, handed her the matchbook and watched her strike the flame. She was rewriting our entire history right in front of me, turning our problems into permission. I stood up, slower than I wanted to, because my body felt heavy with something that had no name yet. Grief? Anger? Humiliation? It wasn't clean. It was tangled. "Tell me everything," I said. "Right now." She bit the inside of her cheek. "I can't. I promised I wouldn't drag him into this." I laughed. Not a real laugh. The kind you let out when your brain short circuits. "You already dragged him in. You dragged me in. You dragged our whole damn marriage in and ran it through a paper shredder." Her jaw clenched. She wanted to keep this neat, clean, controlled. But I wasn't going to let her escape with curated details. "Was it just once?" I asked. "No." That word was a bullet. Are you in love with him? Silence. That silence told me everything. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't even gotten to the worst part yet. Not even close. Because the way she was standing, calm, composed, almost relieved, it hit me. She hadn't told me everything. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. Not that I tried to. I just sat in the guest room. On the floor, back against the wall, staring at nothing while my ears rang with phrases I couldn't unhear. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her lips move again. There's something you need to hear. I couldn't scrub that sentence out of my mind if I tried. It stuck to my bones. She slept in our bed, apparently unbothered, or maybe just faking the stillness. I didn't go check. I couldn't. The idea of walking past that door and seeing her silhouette under the same comforter we picked out together made my skin crawl. I know how that sounds. I know I'm supposed to be the bigger person, but I was barely even a person at that point. Around 4 a.m., I went downstairs. Just needed air. I stood in the kitchen like a stranger in someone else's home. That's what it felt like now. A house with our names on the mortgage, but none of our memories felt real anymore. I opened the fridge, not to eat, just to hear the hum of something mechanical. Something predictable. Something that didn't lie to me. That's when I remembered the storage room in the basement. Now here's something important. She never goes down there. It's musty, unfinished, and smells like old paint and spiderwebs. But I go there. It's where I keep old notebooks, boxes of cables, receipts I don't trust to the cloud, and, most importantly, our home security backups. I had the system installed 2 years ago after someone broke into our neighbor's garage. She'd always rolled her eyes about it, said it was overkill. I didn't disagree, but I liked having the extra layer. I never thought I'd be grateful for it like this. I crept downstairs, careful not to let the steps creak too loud. I opened the metal cabinet where I kept the old hard drives and flash backups. They were labeled by month, organized in a way only someone with too much time and too little purpose could justify. And still, I found the one I needed. April, main entry/driveway cam. Why April? Because that's when she started smiling more. I remember thinking it was because the winter had finally broken. She was wearing dresses again. She bought new sunglasses. She even kissed me on the cheek before work a few times, like she used to. I thought it was a good sign. I thought we were coming back to life. God, I'm such an idiot. I plugged the drive into my old laptop, the one she forgot existed. I hadn't updated it in months, but it worked. The folder opened slow, but there it was, a list of video files with timestamp names. I scrolled through until I found one from a Thursday when she said she had a late client meeting and would Uber home. That night, I remember eating dinner alone and texting her a photo of the meal I made. She said, "Ah, you're too sweet," and told me not to wait up. My hands were shaking as I clicked play. The footage was black and white, angled toward our driveway and part of the front porch. Around 10:42 p.m., a car pulled up. Not Uber, not a sedan. It was a silver hatchback. She stepped out, heels in hand, laughing. Then he got out. I recognized him instantly. No, he wasn't just some guy I didn't know. He was someone I did know. Someone who'd been in my house. Someone who had smiled at me across a dinner table. Her co-worker's husband. Nate. I froze. My spine stiffened so hard it hurt. My heart didn't just break again, it went numb. I watched as he walked her to the door, hand on her lower back. She leaned up, whispered something in his ear. He smiled. Then she kissed him. Not a peck. Not a mistake. A kiss full of meaning, the kind you give when you think no one's watching. And then, she stepped inside. Alone. He left. No luggage. No awkward stumble. Just precision. Repetition. This wasn't new. I sat there for a long time after the video ended. It was past 6 a.m. when I finally stood. The house was still quiet. I heard the sound of a shower starting upstairs. She was getting ready for her day, like nothing ever happened. She came downstairs like nothing was wrong. Hair towel dried, wearing that pale blue blouse with the slightly crooked collar that she always forgot to fix, acting like the last 12 hours hadn't detonated every piece of my internal world. She poured coffee. She scrolled her phone. She even hummed under her breath. I sat across the kitchen island, just watching her, trying to understand how a person could perform normalcy so well. She finally looked up at me and gave the softest smile, like I was supposed to play along. I didn't smile back. "You look like hell," she said casually. "Did you sleep well?" I asked. My voice came out strained, like someone else was puppeting it from inside me. She nodded. Surprisingly, yeah. Surprisingly. That word hung in the air like smoke from a slow fire. She reached for her purse, as if she was about to just leave, as if last night had been some minor inconvenience. But I wasn't ready to let her go. Not yet. I stood up and dropped the flash drive on the counter. I know who it is, I said. Her hand paused mid-zip. Her eyes flicked to the drive, then back to me. And for the first time since this all started, I saw something real cross her face. Not guilt. Not shame. Panic. She opened her mouth, closed it. No words came. April 14th. You told me you were stuck at a late meeting. Said your client had car trouble. That's what you texted me. Word for word. I said it slowly, like I was giving her a chance to interrupt. She didn't. But the camera says otherwise. The driveway camera. The one you always called paranoid junk. You laughed about it. Dean. It was Nate, I said, cutting her off. Nate. The guy who helped us move that bookshelf. The guy who called me bro in my own kitchen. That Nate. She looked like she might throw up. Her hands trembled just slightly, enough to betray her calm mask. You weren't supposed to see that. That's when I snapped. I wasn't supposed to see it. I shouted. That's your takeaway? That I accidentally saw you kissing your affair partner on my doorstep? She looked down. It wasn't supposed to last this long. My laugh came out twisted and broken. So it's just a scheduling issue then? You overcommit to your betrayal? I didn't plan it, Dean. You planned it well enough to lie to my face. Repeatedly. For almost a year. So don't insult me by acting like you tripped and fell into another man's mouth. She wiped a tear from her cheek, but didn't say anything. And I hated that it still hurt me to see her cry. I hated that I still wanted to fix something that was clearly shattered beyond repair. But more than anything, I hated that part of me was waiting for her to give me a good enough reason. Some kind of explanation that would make it all make sense. There wasn't one. And yet she still tried. We were having problems, Dean. You were distant. You buried yourself in your routines and your work and your spreadsheets. You weren't there anymore. Oh, so this is my fault. I said, voice sharp. Because I wasn't entertaining enough? Because I didn't make you feel like a Disney princess every damn morning? That gave you a hall pass to betray me with him? It wasn't like that, she whispered. Then tell me what it was like. Silence again. She sat down across from me, rubbed her temples like she was nursing a headache that I gave her. Then she looked up and did something I didn't expect. She told the truth. I ended it 2 weeks ago. With Nate. It's over. That recording I played for you last night, that was my way of ending it. I wanted you to hear it from me before anyone else did. I blinked. You recorded yourself? She nodded. I wanted you to know it was real. That it happened. That I was ready to face it. I stepped back, stunned. My mind spinning. But that's not the worst part, she added quietly, almost too quiet. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. There's something else. Something I've been avoiding telling you, and I can't anymore. My body went cold. Dean, I think I might be pregnant. She didn't blink. And just like that, the ground under me split wide open. At first, I didn't respond. I couldn't. The word pregnant didn't hit like a revelation. It hit like a gunshot underwater. Everything slowed, warped. The room spun in silence, though nothing physically moved. She sat there with her hands folded like she had just delivered an inconvenient fact, not a detonation. I watched her mouth to see if she'd take it back. Some part of me, even after everything, still hoped she'd say, just kidding. I wanted to see what you'd do. But she didn't. She just stared, blinking slow, letting me marinate in the uncertainty of it all. I tried to speak, but ended up coughing instead. My voice cracked when it finally came out, not with anger, but with something worse, numb curiosity. Is it mine? The words barely reached above a whisper, but she heard them. She closed her eyes before answering, and that pause, those 3 seconds of delay, said more than any answer ever could. I don't know, she said, and with those 3 words, I felt something inside me go still. You ever step into a room, realize you forgot why you came in, then feel something unnatural tug at your gut like you've just entered a memory that doesn't belong to you? That's what I felt in that moment. Like I was watching a life I didn't recognize, starring in a tragedy I didn't write. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was erasure. The quiet removal of everything I thought I had. Dignity, certainty, control, even relevance. She started crying again, softly, like she was mourning someone else. Dean, I swear to God, I didn't plan this. It just happened. We were stupid. It was always chaos with him. It wasn't love, it was heat. A mess I kept stepping back into, because I didn't know how to leave. Then why now? I asked, tone flat. Why the confession? Why the recording? Why suddenly act like a martyr when you've had a year of rehearsals? Her eyes met mine, and something shifted. She wasn't crying from guilt anymore. She was scared. Not scared of me. Scared of what she knew I didn't know yet. Because I think Nate's wife found out, she said, her voice shaking now for the first time. She sent me a message on a burner account. Just one sentence. She said, "He's not the only one I've been watching." I stared at her. What does that mean? I asked, though I already had a creeping suspicion. She shook her head. I don't know. But she's not like me. She's not emotional. She's cold. Calculated. The kind of person who doesn't scream, doesn't cry. She waits. I exhaled through my nose, trying to suppress the rage building behind my ribs. So let me get this straight. You had an affair with the husband of a woman you knew was dangerous. You snuck him into my house, lied to my face, and now that your little fantasy world is cracking apart, you want me to what? Protect you? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because that was exactly what she wanted. That was the twisted, infuriating truth. After all of this, after humiliating me, dismantling our marriage piece by piece, she still saw me as the guy who would fix it. I didn't know what else to do, she whispered. I was scared. That word again. Scared. But she wasn't scared when she was kissing him on the porch. She wasn't scared when she sent me photos of takeout and told me she was still at yoga. She wasn't scared when she was erasing me, one lie at a time. Now she was scared. Now, when the consequences showed up wearing real faces and real threats. I stood there, looking at her like I'd never seen her before. I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger who had learned how to mimic my wife's gestures. A stranger who had lived in my home, in my bed, under my trust. Do you even want to fix this? I asked, the words scraping my throat as they came out. She opened her mouth, hesitated, closed it again, and that's when the doorbell rang. 3 slow chimes. Not urgent, not aggressive, but precise. She flinched. I stepped toward the door, and she reached out, grabbing my wrist. Don't answer it. I pulled away, and in that instant, I realized something chilling. She already knew who it was. I didn't move at first. I just stood there, a few feet from the door, staring at it like it might blink or breathe. The air in the hallway felt different now, like the atmosphere had changed in subtle, invisible ways. You know how before a thunderstorm, everything gets too still, too thick? That's what it felt like. My house had that weight in it, like it knew something I didn't, like it was holding its breath. Lorna stood behind me, rigid, trembling, one hand on the wall for balance. Her knuckles had gone white, not from guilt, from fear, real, gut-deep fear. And that was the part that rattled me more than anything else, because she didn't scare easy. She was the one who stayed calm when we lost power during a snowstorm, when the pipes burst that one winter, when I got laid off and sat on the kitchen floor crying like a child. She was the steady one. Always. Until now. The doorbell hadn't rung again, and whoever was outside didn't knock a second time. No pounding. No voice. Just presence. I reached for the curtain by the side window and pulled it back a sliver, slow enough not to be obvious. At first, I didn't see anything. No car. No figure on the porch. Just silence. Then, down at the edge of the sidewalk, I saw a woman standing beside a mailbox. She was wearing a long brown coat, holding something in her hands. A paper bag, or maybe a parcel. She wasn't facing the house. She wasn't doing anything. Just standing there. I let the curtain fall. It's her, isn't it? I asked. Lorna didn't reply. She just closed her eyes and nodded once, like she was bracing for a verdict. I opened the door. There was nothing dramatic about it. No slamming, no calling out. I just stepped outside barefoot, my heart pounding, every nerve screaming that I was making a mistake, but unable to stop myself. The concrete was cold under my feet, grounding me in a way nothing else had that morning. The woman at the mailbox didn't turn. I walked halfway down the path before she finally spoke without looking at me. Your wife's been deleting messages, she said. Her voice was sharp, not angry, but scalpel clean. She finally turned to face me, and her eyes were so calm, so calculating, I felt myself flinch before she even said another word. That's cute. But backups are forever. She held up the paper bag and handed it to me. I didn't take it right away. What is this? She shrugged. insurance, or a mirror, depending on how honest you want to be. Why are you here? I asked, my throat dry. What do you want? She tilted her head slightly, like she was surprised by the question. I want her to feel what I felt. I want him to know what he broke. I want them both to lose something they never expected to lose. I'm not part of this, I said, almost to myself. She smiled, not kindly. You're exactly part of this. You're the reason the lie worked. You were the stage she performed on. The prop she used. Don't act like you were some neutral ground. You were the camouflage. I looked down at the bag in my hands. It was light. Inside was a phone. A cheap, off-brand burner phone with a cracked screen and one file open on it. A video. She turned to leave. She's pregnant, I said suddenly. I don't even know why. I think part of me wanted to test if that information would shake her. If maybe it would spark sympathy or regret. It didn't. She just kept walking. She won't be for long, she said without turning around. Trust me. Then she disappeared around the corner, into a car I hadn't seen, parked half a block away in the shade of a tree. It pulled off without headlights, without a sound. I stood there for a long time, holding that phone like it was radioactive. Then I went back inside. Lorna was sitting on the floor now, arms wrapped around her knees, face pale. What did she give you? She asked, her voice barely audible. I showed her the phone. She didn't ask what was on it. She just stared at it, then looked up at me like someone who'd already seen the ending of a movie but was still forced to watch it play out. I'm not the only one who's been lying, she said. And suddenly, I understood. This wasn't just about Nate. There was someone else. Someone I didn't know about. And whatever was on that phone was going to change everything. I didn't press play right away. I couldn't. The phone sat between us on the kitchen table, dim screen glowing like a waiting bomb, begging to be activated. Lorna wouldn't look at it directly. She stared at a point just past it, the way a person stares out a window when they're pretending not to cry. Her arms were wrapped tightly around herself, like she was trying to hold her body together from the inside out. I should have demanded answers. I should have yelled. I should have done something more than just sit there, frozen. But that's the thing they never tell you about betrayal. It doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it comes with paralysis, with a numbness so thick, you can't feel the knife until someone else pulls it out. I need to know, I said finally. She nodded without hesitation. Then watch it. But when you do, I need you to remember something. I raised an eyebrow. What's that? Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away. You asked me once if I loved Nate. I said nothing. Because that answer was too easy. The truth is, I never loved him. Not even a little. So what was it then? I asked. She hesitated. Then, in the softest, most terrifying voice I'd ever heard from her, she said, a distraction. From the person I actually did love. I didn't understand what she meant, not yet. But I knew I would. The truth was clawing at the edges. I tapped the phone screen. The video loaded. It was taken from a camera phone, low angle, grainy night vision. It looked like it had been recorded from inside a parked car. I saw the streetlight first, then a sidewalk, then our front door, my front door, and then her, Lorna, kissing Nate on the porch, just like in the security footage. But this wasn't that same night. She was wearing different clothes. The trees weren't in bloom yet. This was earlier. The angle shifted. The person filming stepped out of the car and walked closer. The screen jittered. It wasn't just a recording, it was a confrontation. And then came the voice from behind the camera. Familiar. Controlled. Methodical. You don't look surprised to see me, Lorna. She turned toward the camera, her mouth forming a hard line. Holly, I figured you'd find out eventually. Holly, Nate's wife. So this is what it looks like in person, Holly said. Sad. Smaller than I imagined. Lorna didn't respond. Tell me something. Holly continued, stepping closer. Did you think I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't trace the hotel charges? The burner account you used to Venmo him gifts? The excuse about yoga at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday? Lorna sighed. I never wanted this to hurt you. Oh, I believe that, Holly replied, almost kindly. I don't think you're cruel. I just think you're careless. But the worst kind of careless, the kind that acts surprised when people bleed. There was a long pause on the video. Then Holly spoke again. This time lower, colder. You might want to tell Dean about the other one. The video ended there. No punchline. No shouting. Just that quiet, surgical threat. I set the phone down. What did she mean? I asked slowly. My voice wasn't angry anymore. It was flat. Hollow. Lorna didn't answer right away. She stood, walked to the window, and gripped the edge of the sink like it was the only thing holding her up. "I told you Nate wasn't the person I loved," she said without turning around. "Yes." And her voice broke. It was someone else. Before him. Before all of this. I didn't breathe. She turned to face me, and this time, her eyes were completely empty. "I was in love with someone else while I was married to you. Not Nate. Someone you trusted. Someone you never once suspected. And it was over, until it wasn't. Until he came back." I blinked. "Who?" I asked. "Who the hell are you talking about?" She looked straight into me, and when she said his name, I actually felt the blood drain from my face. "Micah." I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was impossible. Micah was my brother. The best man at our wedding. The one who toasted us with tears in his eyes and called us the rare kind of love you don't mess with. The one who spent last Christmas at our house. I staggered back a step like I'd been punched. "How long?" I asked, my voice cracking. She didn't speak. "How long, Lorna?" "Off and on for 6 years. I saw stars. Actual stars." My ears buzzed. I gripped the edge of the table just to keep myself standing. 6 years. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a fling. That was an alternate life. She came closer, but I stepped back. She stopped. "I'm sorry," she said, but it was meaningless. Like apologizing to a grave. "I loved you, Dean," she added. "But it was always divided. And the worst part is, Micah never even wanted me. Not really. I was a game to him." I laughed again. Hollow, cruel, broken. "So what am I?" I said. "Just the guy who cooked the meals, paid the bills, answered the door, and played dumb while you lived out your soap opera in real time." "No," she whispered. "You were the only one who was real." And for the first time in my life, I realized how devastating it is to be someone's reality when they've been living off lies. The next 24 hours passed in pieces. I remember packing a bag, but not what I put in it. I remember driving, but not where I was going. I remember staring at gas station coffee machines and blinking so hard I nearly broke. At some point, I ended up in a motel off I-90 with stained carpets and a buzzing neon vacancy sign outside the window. It was raining, the kind of rain that feels personal, like the sky knows exactly what you're going through and decides to cry with you. I didn't call anyone, not even my parents. I didn't text Micah. I didn't scream at Lorna. I didn't do anything dramatic. I just sat with the wreckage. That night, I dreamed of silence. Not the terrifying kind like when Lorna whispered, "There's something you need to hear." No, this was a better silence. A quiet that didn't ache. A space that didn't need to be filled. I woke up, heart racing. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning in someone else's choices. Over the next few weeks, something strange happened. I didn't collapse. I didn't lose myself. I didn't become the bitter man I thought I'd turn into. Instead, I started over. Quietly. Patiently. On my own terms. I rented a small apartment downtown. It had creaky floors, a weird smell near the hallway, and the world's loudest radiator, but it was mine. I bought furniture off Craigslist. Painted the walls the wrong shade of blue and didn't bother fixing it. I cooked my own meals, burned half of them, and still ate like I'd made something gourmet. I signed up for a weekend woodworking class, not because I had a passion for building chairs, but because I needed to feel my hands making something that wouldn't fall apart behind my back. And slowly, like sunrise leaking through closed blinds, I came back. The pain didn't vanish, but it stopped defining me. Lorna filed for divorce a month later. No drama, no lawyers, just papers in the mail and a signature from each of us. We didn't speak much after that. She sent one message, a long, rambling apology that ended with, "I hope you find someone who sees you the way I never could." I never replied. Micah, gone. I don't know where. I blocked his number. My parents tried to intervene, asked if I'd reconsider, but I didn't. Some bridges aren't meant to burn. Others are meant to be turned to ash and forgotten. But here's the twist no one expects. I forgave her. Not to her face. Not in a letter. Not for her. But for me. Because carrying that much hate is like drinking poison, hoping it'll make someone else sick. I let it go because I didn't want her voice in my head anymore. I didn't want to be haunted by the echo of a woman who saw me as her emotional airbag. And then, one afternoon, I met someone. Not through a dating app. Not through a friend. Just life. I was at a bookstore downtown, a tiny place that still smelled like paper and cinnamon. She asked if I'd read a book I was holding. I said no, but I'd buy it just to have an excuse to talk to her again. Her name was Tess. She had this calmness in her eyes, like she'd survived her own quiet wars. We talked. We laughed. We didn't rush. 6 months later, she said, "You don't flinch when I'm quiet. Most men panic in silence." I smiled. Silence used to terrify me, I told her. Now it's where I finally hear myself. And that's the truth. Because sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you isn't the end, it's the clearing. The reset. The thing that breaks you down just enough so that the version of you who rises from the rubble is stronger, softer, and somehow free. I don't count Lorna's blinks anymore. I don't count anyone's. I don't measure trust like a scientist in a lab. I just live. And finally, for the first time in my life, I like the sound of my own peace.